This week on Peaceful Co-Parenting Podcast.
It's just the best feeling to just show up 100% for my clients and provide them with so much information that I know so many women wish they would have had when they started their battle.
Welcome to the Peaceful Co-Parenting Podcast, where we discuss strategies and tips to improve your co-parenting situation, especially if it's high conflict. I'm Bianca Balogh, co-parent, mother, and entrepreneur, creator of Peaceful Co-Parenting Messenger app and believer in turning challenging situations into something positive. This week, I'm honored to be talking with Rachel Snow, a certified high conflict divorce coach, mother to one daughter, a Colorado native, a former prenatal massage therapist, and a birth doula. I'm so excited to be talking to you today. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you because of your background in service to families from your former job and also your current job. So tell me a little bit about you and the evolution there.
So, like you've already mentioned, I was a prenatal massage therapist and a birth doula. And I was a massage therapist for about 10 years and a birth doula for only about 1 year until COVID shut everything down. And that gave me some space to pause, to think about what I really wanted to do and how I wanted to move forward. And I loved being in service to women and empowering women, especially mothers. And I was following One Mom's Battle, which started as a blog in 2009, 2010, when she was going through a very high conflict divorce. And I started following her in about 2013 or 2014. And she finally created a program, which is the High Conflict Divorce Coach Certification Program, which is one of the first of its kind. That just seemed like the perfect fit and the next great step. And so I went ahead and applied, was accepted, and completed the certification in February of 2021. And I get to continue to be in service to women and mothers. And I get to continue to empower women and mothers on a different journey now, not with labor and delivery, with high conflict divorce and sometimes custody situations. So I still get to show up fully in that, and I love it.
Yeah. So tell us, it's Tina Swithin, is that correct? On One Mom's Battle?
Yes, Tina Swithin of One Mom's Battle. She just created this incredible program, and we had incredible instructors. Of course, she was one of them, but she brought on many specialists in the field of family court, therapists, mediation specialists.
Tell us a little bit about the training. Like, what are you going through? Is this fairly new? I'm so excited because I never really knew there was a high conflict divorce coach. I've heard of divorce coaches, but not in this specialty.
Yes. So the program itself is new. I would say the awareness of high conflict divorces is finally coming to light. So this program is the first of its kind. There are other divorce coach programs out there, but not specifically focusing on high conflict. And often the high conflict individual does have a personality disorder such as narcissism. So we are looking at really dealing with narcissists in this work. So I only coach one client. So oftentimes people think, oh, you're helping the couple through the divorce. And I'm hired by the client that is most often the victim in the situation, where her ex, sometimes his ex, but I've been working mostly with women. They really don't understand how they got here and what's going on. So the training we went through was 6 weeks. It went by really fast, and it was a lot of information to absorb in 6 weeks. And we had homework, we had psychologists, we had private investigators, we even had a diagnosed narcissist speak to us on how to approach court with a narcissist and what the whole goal of a narcissist is. So that was fascinating. I know for many of my colleagues, that was a very triggering session to go through, to watch, because they've experienced such severe narcissistic abuse.
So some of the coaches have actually had partners that were maybe a narcissist. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I would say every coach that went through this program has experienced a high conflict divorce and or custody situation, abuse in some form, and often society thinks abuse is simply physical. And with a narcissist or with somebody that's a high conflict, it's not always physical abuse. There's mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, sexual abuse, all of those factors. So many of my fellow coaches have gone through a lot of those abuse tactics. And
yeah, so that experience for a lot of the coaches that have gone through the high conflict divorce coach training, they bring a lot of empathy. It's like, it's so nice to talk to somebody that has experienced maybe what some of your clients are going through currently. So
yes, I think that's hugely helpful. I think the majority of anyone who has gone through this or is going through this, that unless you're talking to somebody that has gone through it, they simply don't understand. So talking with friends or family, unless they've experienced it, they don't understand. So having a coach that can truly and honestly say, I understand everything you're saying. I understand everything you're going through. I know how hard it is so effective. It's really powerful to be able to support somebody through that, knowing what they're going through. And I think it's important for the client going through it to see that there is a light at the end, that it's not always going to be this long, dark, hard road, and that you can have someone there to support you the whole way who truly understands what you're going through. And you don't have to explain in great detail to try to get someone to understand, because they understand already.
right, right. They've been through that. And I know that you mentioned that you work with one client. Typically it's the victim. Would it be sometimes a male or most likely a female?
My ideal client base is women. So I know that that's my mission. I know that that's my focus, is really working with women and empowering them through this situation. So there's still definitely men that are the victim, and that their ex, who is a woman, is the high conflict person, is the person that's maybe narcissistic or borderline.
Mm-hmm. So, how do you know you're in a high conflict divorce?
The $100 question, right? It's the $1,000,000 question. How do you know if you're in a high conflict divorce?
Or and really, so often it's that would be nice to know beforehand. Oh, this is gonna be high conflict, but so many times you don't know until later, and you're like, man, I'm in the middle of a high conflict divorce, and it's like looking back, going, I never saw this coming. So how do you even know you're in it?
I think there's a few different factors. One of the easiest would be if your marriage was abusive, your divorce and custody will be abusive. It will be high conflict. If there was any sort of abuse in the marriage, if there was physical abuse, it's going to be a high conflict situation. It's the psychological abuse that's a little harder to pinpoint and say, oh, that's abuse. A lot of it is manipulation. There's some key things that you can look for if you're going through a high conflict divorce or custody is, do they have an all or nothing attitude? Is it my way or the highway? Do they seem to be very controlling in what they will, quote unquote, allow you to do? Or they're trying to manipulate the situation by saying, yes, if you do this, I will give you this house or this car or this amount of money. It's never-ending promises that are not kept. They could try to convince you not to get an attorney. We don't need attorneys. We can work this out. A lot of it is power and control. And for so many people that go through an abusive relationship, when they're separating from that and they have a little bit of space, it's almost as if their intuition and their gut instinct return to them. So it's been manipulated out of them by their abuser. So having some space to trust themselves again and pay attention to, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't feel right. It's probably not right. I think even, divorce is hard, but high conflict divorce is just a whole different beast. It's not amicable, and agree to disagree on things. The high conflict person does not think, okay, we'll do whatever is in the best interest of the child if there's a child involved, or let's just split everything equally. They're just very argumentative and defensive.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of projection, I think, comes out of the high conflict individual. I guess that would be another clue if someone's like, I don't think it's high conflict. Well, is your soon to be ex projecting on you? Are they accusing you of stealing or cheating or something else, and you're not doing it? That's projection, which is usually what they're doing. Whether it's high conflict or not, if you're going to go through a divorce, find an excellent therapist to help you through this.
Yes. And so you had mentioned, you don't give legal advice.
I do not give legal advice. I am not, that's not in my wheelhouse. I'm not a therapist. I'm not an attorney. As the coach, I stand by your side. I help you through this. We figure out strategies. We figure out tools. I help build boundaries. A lot of the time that abuser has chipped away at that person's boundaries and self-worth. And sometimes people don't even know what boundaries are. So I can help people figure out what their boundaries are and create those boundaries. I work with communication and how you can best communicate with that ex, and documentation, and how to document things going through this high conflict divorce or custody. That is one of the most important things, is documentation.
Yeah. So you bring up some really, really key areas that someone really could use some advice around, like the communication strategies, boundaries, moving forward in the divorce, but also for your own mental health, getting through it. How can a high conflict divorce coach save a person some time and money as well?
I think a big way is with documentation and communication strategies. So learning how to communicate with your high conflict ex can save time and money through the divorce, because you're not running everything through the attorney. Being able to be that person that a client can vent to. I'm not the therapist, so I'm not here to help them through that in that capacity. And I'm not the attorney. The attorney doesn't really want to hear all the venting. So I'm there to let them vent and go, yep, I know, I totally understand. Okay, let's figure out a strategy. So it does save money, just because divorce coaches are far less than attorneys, really helping the client understand that moving forward, this is a business transaction. So it's helping to shift their mindset out of the emotional one to a logical one.
Right. That's sometimes hard to do when you've been in a relationship with them and it's no longer that intimate marriage relationship. It's moving out of that into a different kind of relationship. So, yeah, I can totally see how you'd be saving time and money, especially because are you aware of like a lot of the resources that are available for people either going through divorce or even co-parenting?
Yes, I do have plenty of resources that I can direct people to, for therapists for their child, for attorneys, if they need to get into looking for a CFI, which is a child and family investigator, or a PRE, which is a parental responsibilities evaluator. There's also substance use evaluators out there.
So, do you work with clients just in the middle of the divorce, and once that's finalized, that's where your role ends? Or do you follow them even through co parenting challenges with high conflict co parenting?
I will follow them through the whole thing. If that's what they need from me, I am there to support them. It's not just through the divorce, and it's not just as soon as your divorce is final, I'm gone and out of the picture. Or, okay, your custody agreement is settled, I'm out of the picture. It's not that way at all. I will go with them through the whole thing. And I know often clients need their divorce coach, especially in this capacity, the whole time, or they need to show back up when oh, he filed another motion. I'm there through the whole thing.
Yes, so much can come up. And speaking of the parenting plan, is that more in a legal perspective that you don't really go there, or will you help a client come up with like a rock solid parenting plan for that high conflict situation? It does need to be a little more detailed than, say, a divorce that's more amicable.
Yes, I definitely can help with coming up with a parenting plan. And you're right, it absolutely has to be black and white, very clear. There cannot be any room for interpretation. Everything has to be spelled out, or that high conflict person will use that to their advantage. So I can help them come up with things that they want in their parenting plan. And of course, I always say, we can come up with this, and then you take it to your attorney and go through that and see if you can do that. And that's part of mediation too. I help them get set for mediation and come up with their checklist for mediation on what they need to come into mediation with and what they need to ask for. And oftentimes that's where it starts, especially with the parenting plan, is getting specific on how are holidays going to look, even down to obviously pickup time. How, when, and where do we exchange the child or the children for the parenting time? And I think having that down to an exact time is very important.
Yeah, this is where I think you can save someone a lot of time and money, because when the parenting plan is rock solid as it can be anyway, sometimes it's hard to see in the future of like what might happen and like what you needed to include in there. But if you can be really specific, then you won't end up in court later or in these battles with your co-parent on the details that were left out. So that's where that I think is super critical. And there's not a lot, at least I don't know, that I have found out there as far as high conflict co-parenting parenting plans, that like templates of like start here, it's sometimes it's coming up with it from scratch. And that's great that you work with someone on their list. What are the things you can flex on? What are the things that you're not, that are deal breakers? Like you need this
right
in the parenting plan.
I think that that's hugely important, because if you were to Google parenting plans, you would get a very simple cookie cutter template of how to create a parenting plan. But if you're if you're co-parenting or parallel parenting with a high conflict individual, you cannot go buy a cookie cutter parenting plan. There isn't any negotiating. So that's definitely a way to save money with attorneys, is having the divorce coach help you come up with a great parenting plan. And yes, oftentimes it is starting from scratch. And after years of doing it, you really figure out what you want in your parenting plan and what works, and talking with other people that have gone through high conflict. So I pool all my resources and we get down to the nitty-gritty details of it. So
earlier in our talk, you mentioned the word narcissist, which I think is kind of a hot word right now, where I've been hearing it a lot. How does mental illness and personality disorder kind of factor into this high conflict divorce world that you're in?
It's really hard, and it's a fine line. And you're right. I think the word narcissist it's a hot button right now, and it's a hot topic. Very often, the high conflict individual has a personality disorder. Very often, they check all the boxes for narcissism. And I know people aren't as familiar with narcissism as I might be doing the work that I do. And so I know oftentimes people think, well, isn't that someone that just takes a lot of selfies? But it's more than that. And it's a lot more than that. And it can be really dangerous and abusive and extremely toxic. And that's not the only one, I suppose, that comes out in the high conflict divorce situation. It's just the most common. And it's easy to look up all of the traits of narcissism or a narcissistic personality disorder. It's not the amicable divorces that have somebody that's high conflict. The amicable divorces, both people are normal, healthy individuals and they can get through it just fine. But the narcissist thrives on chaos and drama and being the center of attention and control. So it's almost like when you go to court with somebody like that, you're setting the stage for them to perform. And that's really what they're doing.
When you're working with your co-parent or, your ex-husband, and they've never been diagnosed with a personality disorder, a clinical diagnosis, but you're here sitting here going, I think they're a narcissist or they have a personality disorder. Does it even matter? I mean, I guess I'm like, have you ever said to a client, it really doesn't even matter what they are, but let's figure out how to work with them because who knows, like if they really are gonna, diagnosed clinically as this. I guess that's what my question is in the long-winded question is, does it even matter what they are?
It doesn't even matter. Honestly, I can't diagnose somebody. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not doing a psychological evaluation on anyone. I simply know what to look for. So I don't want to waste my clients' time dissecting what personality disorder their ex could or could not have, but we look at the behaviors and we look at how we can react accordingly and appropriately to those behaviors. So we're not going to diagnose it. I don't want them to tell their attorney, well, my ex is a narcissist. Just don't say it. You can point out all the behaviors, all the personality traits, and come from a place of true confusion. I don't understand this. I don't understand why this person is trying to control this or acting like this or treating me like this. So we just focus on the behaviors and how can we work with that.
Yeah, and that's nice that you have that background in these personality disorders so that you can identify some of the traits that are typical. And they seem to go hand in hand, right, with that high conflict divorce.
Yes.
So you'll see them time and time again. So that's nice that you can work with your clients in saying this typically works well with someone who's acting this way and then go from there.
Yes. I've even had clients who don't think that their ex is high conflict. They don't really feel like it's that bad. And then the further we go and the more we work together, we profile the ex so that we can see what's important to them and what triggers them, just so we know what we're working with. That's typically when more of those high conflict behaviors and personality traits come out. And I can say, actually, this person is high conflict. Here's what they're doing that is high conflict. He's not just being a jerk. He's trying to create the chaos. And I think that's almost harder when they think they're just getting a divorce and it's hard and they just want some extra help. And then they realize it's worse than they thought. So it's almost another grieving period of, oh, this is going to be harder than I thought.
It sounds like you work with potential clients to discover their situation, where you'll work with them initially to, have a kind of a consultation in the beginning. Can you tell me how would somebody start working with you to discover what the potential could be?
So I offer a 30-minute discovery call that's complimentary, where I can talk with them and they can talk with me and ask me questions, and I can really see what's happening in their case, and we can make sure that we're a good fit to work together. They're telling me all kinds of very personal, intimate details about their life and what they're going through and the pain and the struggle. That's just a really brief time to see if we feel like we can work together. Usually from there, if they decide they want to move forward, they can purchase packages, they can purchase individual sessions. In doing the work, I've really found 5 sessions is like the minimum to start with. There's just so much to get through, and there's so much information I have to share, and so much I can provide them to build their foundation to get through this, that 5 sessions, I mean, it flies by like that. It's over. You're like, okay, well, we did a session a week and we're done now.
Yeah, I can hear the passion in your voice that you really love helping people. What's the best part of being a high conflict divorce coach?
I love that I can share the knowledge I have, and I love empowering my clients. I love empowering women. I know that's what I'm here to do. I love showing up for them and being in service. I have known for as long as I can remember that I'm here to be in service in some capacity. And that's so many of the jobs that I've gone through in my life, and everything has led to this. And I can empathize and I can be their cheerleader and I can understand their tears and I can understand their wins. And it's just the best feeling to just show up 100% for my clients and provide them with so much information that I know so many women wish they would have had when they started their battle.
I was just going to say I love your background as a doula because we had joked before when we were chatting on the phone previous to this podcast recording that you're the divorce doula. I mean, and
I'm the Denver divorce doula, and I knew that my work would just transfer over to this. I love birth work. I loved being a birth doula, and the same work that I did there is what's here is who takes care of mom. She needs support, tools, she needs a hug, she needs love and comfort. And I bring all of those things to her just in a different capacity now. Clients hire me for that. I've got the attorneys and I've got a therapist, but you're just for me. I'm just there to bring them through this transition. It's just a different kind of birth. It's still hard. It's still long.
painful sometimes.
Still very painful sometimes. There's tears. So it's a different kind of labor and birth, but I love the work and I love that all of my training with being a doula comes in just perfectly the same here. It's really incredible.
Yeah, I really like that. I think there are a lot of parallels to the childbirth experience and then kind of a transition into a new chapter, a new phase. And it can be painful. But working with somebody who knows,
Hmm.
has been there, has done that, and knows how to get through it, is so huge. And it can make all the difference in the world. So,
Yeah, I remind my clients because they often feel like, they feel alone. It can be isolating. You can lose friends, you can lose family because your ex will start a smear campaign against you. So everyone thinks you're the problem. And I just want my clients to know they're not alone. I'm here. Just because our phone call session ends doesn't mean I've left. You can still email me. I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm your support. That's why you hired me. Plus, I love this. I love being here for my clients.
I do think also it can feel hopeless. Like you are alone. Like, nobody else in the world is going through something like this devastating. And so
Yeah.
having somebody to hold your hand and walk you through it and give you those tools is so
Yes.
great.
Yes. And I often will tell them whichever state they live in to reach out to the local One Mom's Battle chapter state Facebook page just so they have more support, knowing they're not alone. I mean, that's the one thing I hear is I thought I was the only one going through this.
So you had mentioned the local chapter of One Mom's Battle, but made me think, do you work virtually or how do you work with your clients?
So I do phone calls. I just have them call me. I have a Google voice number set up. And so they call me at their session time and we just do it over the phone. I'm open to doing Zoom calls, of course, if a client wants to do that. And I haven't met any clients in person. The benefit of the work is I can do it anywhere and I can have clients anywhere. So I don't necessarily have to have clients that are only in Colorado. I could have clients in any state. I think that's really helpful too. Just if you find a coach that works for you and they're not in the same state, that's okay.
Right. In this day and age, especially, right? We're very familiar with the remote system. So that's great. Anything else that you want to add that I didn't ask you?
I feel like we're working with a broken family court system. I think the majority of people that are starting out in this marathon of divorcing and custody with a high conflict individual, they think they're going to find justice and validation in the courtroom. That's a common thought, but it's a misconception. You're not going to get everything you want in the courtroom. The judges don't know. The attorneys often don't know. Other court professionals don't know. We have to arm these people, these women and men going through this divorce. We have to arm them with tools and strategies on how to handle this. I think often the family court professionals think that, oh, this divorce is high conflict. It's both of these people. They are both the problem. And I want to make it very clear that it takes one person to make it high conflict. That's a whole part of what I'm doing too, is awareness, bringing awareness to family courts and anyone that will listen, that, you know, I want to coach these people, but I want to bring awareness about what's going on and what abuse looks like.
Going to court doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to get fixed or they're going to get better or anything like that. So starting off on the right foot is another reason to have a high conflict divorce coach. And I think it's wonderful that we have this resource now that's so specific about high conflict. I want to hear a little bit about your business name, Luminary, and kind of what your thought behind that was, because there is hope.
Thanks for asking, Bianca. Well, Luminary is something or someone that will light the dark path. It feels like a long, lonely, dark path when you're going down it. And I want my clients to know that I'm there with them to guide the way through this dark time, and that it won't always be dark, that there is light at the end. And I can attest to that.
Thank you, Rachel Snow. You're a cheerleader. You're the secret weapon in the back pocket. Thank you so much for joining us. How can people get a hold of you if they're interested in your services?
Thank you, Bianca. They can get a hold of me quite a few ways. They can go to my website, luminarydivorcecoaching.com. I'm also on Facebook, Luminary Divorce Coaching, and Instagram, Luminary Divorce Coaching, Pinterest, LinkedIn. I'm all over. So they can find me whatever way works best for them. I'd be happy to do some discovery calls and answer any questions.
It's a great resource, Rachel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Peaceful Co-Parenting Podcast. I hope the time was well spent and you got a lot out of the episode. If so, please rate and review the podcast. I would really appreciate it. If you're interested in sending me a feedback message, asking a question, suggesting a podcast topic or guest, or downloading Peaceful Co-Parenting Messenger as a tool for better communication with your co-parent, go to peacefulparentapp.com or see the links in the show notes. Have a great week, and as always, stay peaceful.